Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 93R and the G18 automatic pistols. Now, at one point in time, the 93R was the undisputed king of the pistols. This thing did 25 damage maximum with a rate of fire of 900 rounds per minute. This made it more powerful than most carbines or assault rifles in close quarter combat. Don't ask me how the 93R ended up with 25 maximum damage, but in the last patch, DICE has clearly seen the error of their balancing ways and taken that 25 maximum damage and taken it down to 20. This puts it at the same damage output as the G18, assuming that you can fire the 93R as fast as you can fire the G18, which is very hard to do because it's a burst fire weapon, so you have to click it at the absolute perfect intervals to keep it firing as if it's like an automatic weapon. Now, not only did the 93R get a damage nerf in the last patch, but it also got a damage over range nerf, where before the 93R started to drop off in damage at 12 meters, and that got reduced down to 8 meters, so its range has been greatly affected too. Now, if you compare the 93R and G18 damage models side by side, they both do 20 maximum, 12.5 minimum, and they have the exact same damage drop off. So for all intents and purposes, their damage output is identical. You do, however, get one extra bullet with the 93R. Since it has a 3-round burst fire mode, the last burst fire would only be 2 bullets if they capped it off at 20 rounds. So instead you get 21, meaning that you can do 7 bursts of 3 shots. Now, the unique thing about the 93R, aside from it being the only burst fire automatic pistol, is that it has a foregrip. As you can see, there's a tiny little grip on the front of the gun that my front hand is hanging onto. And not only does this look cool aesthetically, but it actually reduces the side-to-side recoil of this pistol greatly, which is actually pretty important if you consider that it's an automatic pistol. The G18 has much higher side-to-side recoil compared to the 93R. With a left pull of 0.2 and a right pull of 0.2, this thing is actually pretty easy to maintain accuracy even at medium distances. It does have a vertical recoil pull of 0.5, which is a little bit on the high side, but it's nothing that can't be managed, especially since it's a burst fire weapon. It's kind of easy to keep your aimer on target. Now, not so long ago, I did the Magnum versus Rex comparison guide, and that one was a little easier to do because I was playing on a pistols only server. Now, I tried to do the same thing this time around, except pistols-only servers generally ban the 93R and G18. They don't want people using the automatic pistols. They think they're pretty overpowered in comparison. I don't know if I would say they're overpowered, but they do definitely change up the game type. So in order to get my pistol gameplay, where I was just constantly using the 93R and G18, I had to play on a close quarters game where every gun was legal. So I'm going up against assault rifles, and pretty much every gun in the game where I'm using a pistol primary. And surprisingly, although I kept it to close quarters, I managed to do a lot better than I thought I was going to do. So that goes to show you that not only can pistols definitely hold their own in most combat situations, but the automatic pistols especially are quite powerful. Just don't expect to get any double kills. You almost have to play it like a shotgun, get in very close, use up your ammunition in one quick peek, reload very fast, peek back around the same corner, and get a second kill. The guns reload so fast that it's actually possible to play like that, with a reload time of 1.35 seconds for your short reload and 1.6 seconds for your long reload. They both reload at that exact same speed, and that's faster than any assault rifle or any other weapon in the game, really. Alright, so let's sum up the 93R. It's an accurate burst fire pistol. It shoots very fast. It can be a little bit hard to get it to shoot at its maximum rate of fire because you have to click the fire button just as the burst ends, and if you click it at the wrong time or click it too fast, sometimes you get a little what they call a jamming effect, which is actually very aggravating. I hate the burst fire mechanics on guns in Battlefield 3, but if you get used to it, you can actually put a lot of bullets out with the 93R very quickly. Now, its benefit over the G18 is its accuracy. With that 0.2 left pull and that 0.2 right pull, and even the 0.5 vertical pull for its recoil, it can maintain accuracy at medium ranges much better than the G18. However, you do have to keep click firing, so that for some people can actually be a bit of a deal breaker because the click fire mechanic in itself can sometimes throw your target your pointer off target. If you're clicking every time, sometimes that can jolt the mouse a tiny bit and make you slightly less accurate, or just being able to time those clicks while you're trying to be accurate at the same time it's a whole nother chore to do, whereas an automatic weapon like the G18, which I'm using right here, makes that mechanic much easier. You just click, hold down the fire button, fire off your entire magazine, and keep your crosshair on target. You don't have to worry about keeping your crosshair on target in addition to clicking at the perfectly right interval all the time. So let's get into the G18. The interesting thing with the G18 is that it has a suppressed and a non-suppressed version. The non-suppressed version does a little bit more damage over range. So the maximum damage and the minimum damage don't change, but the drop-off for the suppressed version starts earlier and ends earlier. So basically, you're not going to be doing as much damage at range, but you will be staying off that minimap. Also, the suppressed version gives you better aiming down sight accuracy, which is interesting, and it also greatly reduces your hipfire accuracy. So if you're going to be using the suppressed version, you really want to be aiming down sights and not hipfiring quite as much. Now, for the sake of comparing the two weapons, I pretty much played exclusively with the non-suppressed version of the G18 because I really didn't want to get that added benefit of staying off the minimap. Wanted to see what it was going to be like if I was just as exposed on the minimap as I was with the 93R, and really just compared the differences in weapon damage. That being said, the suppressed version of the G18 really is a good gun. It's definitely worth trying out, especially if you're trying to be more stealth or you're working with a build that's something like a recon class where you're using your sidearm for close quarter engagements and your sniper rifle for long range engagements. That way, if you ever need to deal with somebody up close and personal, you don't get spotted on the minimap. So the biggest difference between the 93R and G18 is that the G18 doesn't have that burst fire, and that's actually a huge thing to consider because burst fire really does reduce the amount of damage you can output. Sure, it says they both fire at the same rate of fire, and the burst fire, the actual burst rate, is 900 rounds per minute, but your ability to actually fire 900 rounds non-stop is very hard to do. And in close quarters situations, especially when you're up against a good opponent, you're going to need to be able to put out as much damage as fast as possible without any kinds of interruptions, and that's where the G18 really excels. Where the G18 lacks a bit more than the 93R is those long-range engagements. The G18 has a side-to-side recoil of 0.4 pull left and a 0.4 pull right, making it much less accurate at longer range engagements. For the most part, that didn't really feel like it hurt me too much because I was using this as sort of a close quarter weapon, much like I would with a shotgun. Now, the vertical recoil is also considerably higher, clocking in at 0.7 as opposed to the 93R's 0.5, so overall the recoil is a bit harder to manage, but again, at those close quarter situations, it really didn't seem to be that big of a deal. Now, the interesting thing about this test is that I'm using the G18 and 93Rs as primary weapons, meaning I'm going to run into a lot of people at medium range distances where I generally wouldn't have a sidearm equipped in a normal game. You know, I use a sidearm as my backup weapon in case I run out of ammo or can't reload fast enough with my primary. Then I switch to the sidearm and usually deal with somebody in very close range environments. But since I was using it as a primary, I was running into a lot more people at medium ranges. I noticed the 93R seemed to be a bit more effective at medium range because of its easier to control recoil. But considering that almost every time in a real game where I switch to my sidearm to drop somebody, they are in close quarters, and that being the case, I think the G18 kind of beats out the 93R because it is not restricted by that burst fire mode, which is a huge factor when deciding which gun to use. So all in all, I would pick the G18 over the 93R, and since I was also almost always aiming down sights with the G18, I would pick the suppressed version since it has an accuracy bonus. And funny enough, I still managed to top a close quarter server using only a pistol. I didn't use my assault rifle once the whole time while playing. I did get a few knife kills, but for the most part it was all pistols kills, so they're definitely capable weapons. I hope this video was informative, helps you guys figure out what kind of sidearms you want to use, and I'll see you guys next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.